statement. There's a whole 30-minute audio recording. Yes.
All right. Rule 613B addresses this issue, and you may proceed. The objection is overruled.
Mr. Griffin asked you the length of time that Mr. Murdaugh was there. When these investigators questioned you in October of 2022, do you remember them asking you about how long he was in the kitchen and in the room with Ms. Murdaugh?
Yes.
And do you remember them asking you about, and he asked you on cross, whether it was unusual, whether Mr. Murdaugh had visited that time of night? Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay. And do you remember telling the investigators that he would not come on your shift after 8 o'clock? Do you remember that?
Yes.
And that was unusual?
Yes.
And do you remember one of them questioning you? You actually registered it in your mind that this is unusual for him to be here that time of night? Do you remember that?
Yes.
Was your answer yeah? Because I was like, yeah, to be honest, I was like, oh, why are you here this time of night? Why are you here this time of night, you know? Because we all going to bed?
Mm-hmm. It's in my mind. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And as far as the length of time, do you remember them asking you how long? And you said it was about 20 minutes?
Yes.
You know, and I'm trying to speed this up. Maybe court's indulgence. Do you remember, when Mr. Griffin asked you about your recollection as to what Mr. Murdaugh said asked you about the 30 to 40 minute period? Do you remember that? Remember just a little while ago when he was asking you about that? I'm not trying to be, just a little while ago.
Yes.
Okay. About whether if anybody ever asked you if I was here or not?
Yes.
And do you remember that his investigators asked you if SLED had put that in your mind?
No.
Is that the recollection or something they put in your mind?
He's leading the witness. He's publishing a document that is not a certified transcript of anything. Object.
Mr.
It's their statement they took.
I sustain the objection.
Did Alex Murdaugh ask you to tell somebody how long he'd been there?
He said if someone asks you, I've been 30 to 40 minutes. That's what he said.
He said if somebody asked you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Just repeating her answer.
Mr. Meadows?
Is that the answer you gave his investigators?
Yes.
Back in October of 2022?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Griffin asked you about this blue tarp. Did his or Mr. Harpin's investigators ask you about that when they met with you?
Yes.
Okay. Did they bring something with them? Do you remember them showing you something?
No, a picture.
Okay. Did they also show you a tarp?
Yes.
Okay. Did they tell you they just got it from Kmart?
Yes.
Okay. Just bought it from Kmart. And I can't. So their investigators brought this with you to the interview
Yes.
and showed you this, correct?
Yes.
And had you already described a well, who'd you first tell that there was something that the defendant may have been holding in his hand? Who'd you tell first? When he came in that morning after the funeral, who did you tell that first to in law enforcement? That the defendant may have been holding something or was holding something when he came in?
Dango, Officer Dango.
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 Okay. And as a result of that, Sled came and interviewed you.
Yes.
Okay. And then you told them what your testimony's been.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. So in October 22nd, when their investigators came, they were asking you about what you talked about to Dango, right?
Yes.
Okay. And they showed you this, right?
Yes.
And did they also ask you about if you'd seen a shirt? Do you remember when they asked you if you'd seen a blue shirt?
Yes.
What was a blue shirt?
It's a blue.
I don't know. What was it? Just like a dress shirt or a shirt? What was it?
Like a rain jacket or something, like a pullover.
Okay.
Something.
But they described it as a shirt?
No. Not as I can recall.
Do you remember them asking you, you're positive it wasn't a shirt?
Yes.
They
Yes.
asked you that?
Yes.
And your answer was it's vinyl. It was a vinyl, right?
Yes. Yes.
Don't leave the witness.
And Mr. Griffin was asking you about the vinyl, whatever. Do you remember them asking you if there could have been a gun in it, his investigators?
I can't recall. I can't remember.
Last question, Judge. Can I have that picture? States 411, Ms. Shelley. You've identified this previously. Does that look like the blue vinyl garment he was carrying in?
Yes.
Say that again.
Yes.
Was it all crumbled up in his arms?
It was balled up. Yes. Balled
Was
up.
it folded out?
No, it wasn't.
Was he wearing it?
No, he wasn't.
That's all. Thank you.
By the defense.
Ms. Smith, it's clear when you left the next morning, you saw the blue tarp laid out on Ms. Libby's retirement rocking chair, correct?
Yes.
And it was not a rain jacket, was it?
No, it wasn't.
It was a blue tarp like what's in here is in evidence 86, right?
Yes.
No doubt in your mind.
No doubt.
Now, our investigators, let me ask you, I'm marked for identification exhibit 87. Did they show you a picture of this rain jacket?
Yes.
Had you ever, and you told them you never seen that rain jacket, right?
Correct.
Your Honor, we'd introduce exhibit 87 into evidence.
Without objection.
Can I put it up here? Well, while they're working on that, Ms. Smith, did anyone speak to you over lunch about your testimony?
No,
Did you talk to any SLED agents or anybody at the AG's office?
no.
Okay. Get that going. Is that full size? Yeah, let's see if we get the whole picture in there. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Doug. You ever seen this rain jacket before?
No,
Did Alex Murdaugh have that rain jacket with him when he came in to the Ms. Libby's home on the morning, I believe, a few days after the funeral?
no,
Okay. And if this photo, Exhibit 41, states Exhibit 41, can you see this blue thing winded up?
yes,
If that is, in fact, the photo of the rain jacket that we just looked at, would your testimony be you've never seen that garment folded up in that closet before?
no. Only thing I seen was blue velvet. I never know it was a raincoat or not. It was balled up.
So well, had you ever been in this closet before?
No, I haven't.
So you don't know what that is folded up there, do you?
Correct.
And so if it's this rain jacket, if that's what's in that closet, you've never seen Alex Murdaugh with this garment before, have you?
No, I haven't.
All right. Now, just very briefly, I know you've been really good here. I know it's been a hard day, and we appreciate you being here. That day when you came to work, Mr. Randolph Murdaugh had been put back in the hospital. Isn't that correct?
Yes,
And that was unusual because he'd just gotten out of the hospital like a day before, right?
yes,
And so it was, although it wasn't usual for Alex Murdaugh to come over that night, but this was an unusual day because Mr. Randolph had been put back in the hospital. Would you agree with that?
yes.
All right. Thank you. That's all the questions I have, John.
Thank you, ma'am. You may step down. You may call your next witness.
The state calls Kristen Moore.
Raise your right hand and say, "I do you affirm the testimony about to give the court in which trial shall be the truth, so help you God?" I do. Take a seat in the witness stand. State your name again for the record. Spell your last name.
Kristen Moore. Moore. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Could you tell the jurors where you work?
I work for the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division.
Okay. And Agent Moore, you might need to pull that microphone a little, speak up so we can hear you, make sure to hear you out here. Thank you. And what do you do with SLED?
I'm a special agent assigned to the crime scene unit.
And did you have an occasion to become involved in the investigation of the murders of Paul and Maggie Murdaugh?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Were you involved in the execution of a search warrant?
Yes, ma'am.
And where was that search warrant executed?
At 2175 Yemassee Highway in Barnville, South Carolina.
And do you know what that residence was or is?
It was the residence of Alexander Murdaugh's mother.
And who was there when you executed the search warrant?
Several SLED agents were on scene, as well as family members.
What were you looking for when you searched the residence?
We were advised that we were looking for a blue and colored tarp-like material.
And what areas of the residence did you search?
We searched the entire interior of the residence.
Let's talk about the north bedroom of that residence. Do you recall what you located in that bedroom?
We located a blue tarp inside the closet in the north bedroom on the second floor.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as Tate's Exhibit 224. Do you recognize what's in that picture?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Is that a fair and accurate representation of what you found in the north bedroom closet?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, at this time, Ms. Tate would move States 224 into evidence.
Submit it.
Permission to publish?
Yes.
Agent Moore, could you describe for the jurors what you found in that picture?
That is the blue tarp that we located inside the bedroom in the inside the closet inside the bedroom.
Okay. And what was that tarp located in?
A storage container.
Were there any items in the storage container?
There were miscellaneous dishes underneath the tarp.
After you found the tarp, did you continue searching the residence?
Yes, ma'am, we did.
Okay. And what else did you find?
We located a blue raincoat in the coat closet on the second floor.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's previously been entered as State's Exhibit 223. Do you recognize that photo?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Let me put that on the screen so the jury can see. Could you point out that closet for us?
It is at the top of the photo on the right-hand side. So the door immediately above the stairs leads to an attic area, and the door to the right of it is the coat closet.
So not this door right here at the very top of the stairs. The next door is the closet we're talking about.
That's correct.
And I'm going to show you State's 414. Do you recognize that picture?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Okay. And what are we looking at there?
That is a picture of the interior of the coat closet.
Your Honor, at this time I move tapes 414 into evidence.
No objection.
So admitted.
Now, Agent Moore, if you could you point out the blue raincoat or tarp-like material that you found in this picture?
It's in the back of that photo behind the white box, towards the bottom.
And if you don't mind, would you mind stepping down and pointing that out to the jurors? Okay. Would you come down to the big TV? Thank you.
It's right here.
So, and that's how you found the raincoat?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Down in that closet.
Yes, ma'am.
And if you look at this picture, it appears there are other items of clothing that are hanging up,
Yes, ma'am, there was.
but the raincoat is balled up down there.
That is correct.
And what did you do when you located that raincoat?
We documented it with photographs, and then we collected it in a brown paper bag, which was dated, sealed, and initialed.
I'm going to show you tapes 225, which I believe the defense has an objection to.
Your Honor, if it's the raincoat, it's already in evidence. And the photo of the raincoat is in evidence. I don't know why we need another photo, but we do object to any testimony about seizing the blue raincoat, anything beyond that, based upon my earlier statements to the court.
Response?
Your Honor, this agent's testifying to what she retrieved from the closet, and I believe this is a picture of her retrieving that item.
Objections overruled.
So, Agent Moore, do you recognize what's in this picture?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
And this is a true and accurate depiction of what you recovered from that closet?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Your Honor, at this time I would move tapes 225 into evidence.
Objection.
Same objection.
Submitted over objection.
All right, and Agent Moore, if you could tell us what is in this picture, State's Exhibit 225.
That is a photo of the blue raincoat that I collected.
And this will be State's Exhibit 226. Without opening this, can you tell us what is in this item, State's Exhibit 226?
Based off of the item number and lab number and my initials, this would be the blue raincoat.
Your Honor, the State removes State's 226 into evidence.
Objection, relevant.
No response.
Your Honor, this is the purported raincoat that was recovered from the closet.
Submitted.
All right. And when you recovered that raincoat, did you do anything with it besides photograph and collect it?
Not on that day. We transported it back to the SLED Forensic Services Laboratory.
And now in the closet where you found that raincoat, were there any guns?
No, ma'am.
Were you involved in any of the processing of the raincoat?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
And what part were you involved in?
On October 7th, 2021, at the SLED Forensic Services Laboratory, I met with SLED serology personnel to document and do additional processing on the raincoat.
Okay. And what processing did you take part in?
It was documented with photographs. The stains on the raincoat were then documented with scale tape and labeled, photographed again. SLED serology department then tested the stains with phenolphthalein, which is a presumptive test for the presence of suspected blood. All testing with phenolphthalein was negative. We then used an alternate light source to look for any latent stains on the raincoat. We observed an additional stain and documented it with photographs as well as scaled it. Then it was tested with phenolphthalein as well, and it was negative. We then used leucocrystal violet, or LCV, which is also a presumptive test for the presence of suspected blood, and it was negative also.
All right, as far as your involvement in the raincoat, does that pretty much sum it up for us?
Yes, ma'am, it does.
Okay. All right, thank you, Agent Moore. Please answer any questions from the defense.
Good afternoon, Agent Moore.
Good afternoon.
So I understand you went to Almeda, Ms. Libby Murdaugh's home, to execute a search warrant. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, it is.
And what was the day? September
16th, 2021.
September 16th, 2021. And you were looking for a blue tarp.
We were advised that we were searching for a blue tarp-like material.
Okay. And you found a blue tarp. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And in that blue tarp, there were dishes wrapped up in that blue tarp, right?
No, sir, no dishes were wrapped in the blue tarp. It was folded on top of the dishes.
Okay. So you seized the blue tarp, right?
Yes, sir.
And did you do any testing of the blue tarp to see if there was blood?
No, sir, I did not do any testing on the blue tarp.
Do you know anyone who did any blue testing on the blue tarp?
I am unaware of any testing done on the blue tarp.
You seized this rain jacket in here, in this box. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, it is.
And back in the lab, you did some presumptive testing. We sprayed it with phenol first.
Phenolphthalein was first utilized, yes, sir.
And phenolphthalein is a presumptive test for blood, meaning, you know, it could test positive, but it's not necessarily means it's blood, right?
That is correct.
And in order to determine whether something that has tested positive with phenolphthalein, you do another type of test to confirm human blood, right?
That is correct.
But the blue rain jacket never tested positive for the presumptive test using phenolphthalein, right?
That is correct.
So it was negative.
Yes, sir.
So after getting negative with phenol, then you use another product called LCV. Is that right?
We did. We used an alternate light source first to make sure that we had all stains documented.
Now, an alternate light source is what?
It is a specific wavelength of a flashlight, and you used a colored filter, and then you can see any latent things that you wouldn't be able to see with your naked eye.
And the alternative light source doesn't tell you whether that's possibly blood or something else, does it?
No, sir, it does not.
So you use that alternative light source and you identified some area, and is that the area you tested with LCV?
We tested the entire raincoat with LCV.
The entire raincoat? Okay.
Yes, sir.
And again, that's a presumptive test like phenolphthalein,
Yes, sir.
and that tested negative.
That is correct.
Okay. And so there's no more blood testing done of the rain jacket, right?
I was not involved in any further processing of the raincoat.
Do you know if that LCV that you sprayed on the entire shirt has turned the rain jacket in that box completely violet?
I have not seen the raincoat since the processing was done on October 7th, 2021.
Okay. What size is this rain jacket?
I could not tell you the exact size of the raincoat.
Well, would you agree with me that the records indicate it's a large?
Yes, sir, it is a larger jacket.
Well, the size being large, do you know if it's large? If that's the size?
I do not recall the size.
Do you mind if she opens it up? Your Honor, do you mind if the witness opens the box up and let's see what size the rain jacket is?
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Do I have scissors?
You have scissors?
No, I don't have scissors. I have gloves.
Yeah, you probably want gloves.
Yeah. I don't see a tag right here at the front. You may want to put gloves on. It has chemicals on it.
Ooh, I don't want to touch it then, which I just did. Okay. Well, do you mind standing up in front of the jury and show them how large it is? Is it a poncho style rain jacket?
Just it appears that way.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Smells too good. Do you know if that rain jacket or photos of that rain jacket was shown to any members of the Murdaugh family to see if they recognize it?
I am unsure.
Okay. You did not then, did you?
No, sir, I did not.
Did you show that photo or picture, excuse me, the photograph, the rain jacket? Let me scratch that. Did you show to Shelley Smith the rain jacket or a photo of the rain jacket?
No, sir, I did not.
Do you know of any SLED agent who did?
I do not.
1 second, Your Honor. That's all the question I have.
Further questions?
I only brought this up there.
All right, Agent Moore, what happened to that tarp or raincoat? Where is it?
It's in the
back in
box.
the box.
Yes, ma'am.
State's Exhibit 226. This is the raincoat you collected from that closet at Alameda.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Now, when you collected it, did it have like this tape here on the raincoat where we can, the white tape with the letters on there?
No, ma'am, I placed that on that.
So that was done during processing?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
And we've been talking about a raincoat, but this isn't, is this what you would normally think a raincoat would look like?
No, ma'am.
This is rather large for a raincoat.
Yes, ma'am.
When you found it, it was balled up like this?
That is correct.
No further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
Thank you. You may step down. Call your next witness.
William McElby.
Raise your right hand, left hand on the Bible. Do you affirm the testimony about to give the court shall be the truth, so help you God? Take a seat in the witness stand. State your name again. Spell your last name.
My name is William McElveen, M-C-E-L-V-E-E-N.
Mr. McElveen, how are you doing today?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing well. If you would, tell the jury a little bit about yourself. Where'd you grow up, and where'd you go to school?
I grew up in Columbia, South Carolina. Went to AC Fuller High School. Went to the Citadel after high school. Graduated there in 2017. Went to get my master's at Clemson. Graduated in 2018. Moved back to Charleston, worked for a CPA firm for a while. And now I'm in finance for a home builder.
For where, sorry?
For a home building company.
And what area generally do you currently live?
Live in Charleston now.
Mr. McElveen, were you friends with Paul Murdaugh?
I was. Good friends.
All right, well, tell us a little bit about when y'all first met.
So I lived in Edisto Beach every summer with my granddad, and when I was growing up. And he was in Edisto all the time, so we just became close. Edisto's a small town. Not many young people live there, so the young people kind of stick together. We both love fishing, hanging out, so we just became good friends through that.
So you would spend the summers in Edisto?
That's correct, yep.
And what kind of things would you do throughout those summers?
Just hang out, work, fish.
What kind of jobs did you get?
I worked multiple jobs there for 5-ish summers. Worked at the marina a good bit, a restaurant there called the Sea Cow. I worked at a realty company as an inspector, and at the Bilo as well.
Okay. And I think you just said, but you met Paul about the high school years?
That's correct.
Okay. Tell us a little about your friendship. How did it start, and how did it kind of evolve?
It started just kind of common interest in fishing and hanging out, and then he was just a really fun guy, so we just hung out more and more. And I started going to Moselle, hanging out with his whole family. They kind of took me in, and just evolved from there. Yeah.
So did you get to know him pretty well?
Yes, I did.
Did you get to know his family fairly well?
Yes, I did.
Tell us a little bit about Paul.
Paul was just a really fun guy, just like the life of the party kind of guy. Everybody that really knew him loved him. I don't know, just a great guy, very loyal friend, the kind of guy that's always there when you need him.
So if you reached out and needed something, he... You might want to pull that mic a little closer to your mouth so it picks it up. Just try to speak into the microphone.
Okay.
So was he sort of a responsive friend? Meaning, if you reached out to him, would he respond back?
Yes, he was very responsive.
And how did you primarily communicate with him? What means?
Cell phone normally, yeah.
Phone calls or texts?
A little bit of both, but mostly phone calls. He was a big phone caller. Yes.
Well, I guess tell us a little bit about Paul's cell phone use. Did he like to use his cell phone?
He did like to use a cell phone.
How would you describe it, his use of cell phone?
He used cell phone a lot. Kind of every time he had a road trip or anything like that, he would use it to call all of his friends and just check in on everybody. I can speak for almost all of his friends. We get a phone call from him almost every day. And then he used text a lot, Snapchat, that kind of stuff.
Was he on his phone quite a bit?
Yes.
To the point where was it very noticeable to his friends?
Yes.
Did you ever have did you have an opportunity to get to know Maggie Murdaugh?
Yes, I did.
All right, well, tell us about her. What was your observations about her or your whatever friendship y'all had?
She was just a super sweet lady. She kind of always trusted Paul when he was with me, 'cause she would know he's staying out of trouble. I don't know, she just treated all of Paul's friends like they were her kids, and just a very nice lady.
And did she approve of you hanging out with Paul?
Yes.
Okay. Tell us about that.
About what? Sorry.
Well, did she ever comment to you about how she liked you hanging out with Paul?
Yeah, she did. I can hang out with Paul.
And did you have an opportunity to get to know Alex Murdaugh?
I did.
All right, and what were your perceptions of him?
Kind of the same way the rest of the family, just took everybody in, all Paul's friends. He was kind of the dad of all of our friend group. Just the same way the rest of the family, yeah.
And is he here today?
Yes.
Did you identify him?
Yes. It's in the brown jacket.
Thank you. Did you ever get to go out to the family property on Moselle?
Yes, I did.
How often would you have you been out there visiting?
Probably 30 or 40 times.
Okay. Did you spend the night when you went out there?
Yes, normally.
Tell us a little bit about the property. What kind of things would y'all do out there?
Did a lot of hunting. Also, probably more than hunting, just hanging out. And just enjoying each other's company, hanging out.
So you said about what, 30 to 40? Is that what you said?
That's correct.
Okay. If you would, please
Yep.
speak up a little bit. It's okay. All right. Now that the property, was there a main house location?
There was, yes.
All right. And was there a secondary location for kennels and a shed?
Yes, there was.
All right. Did you spend much time out at that secondary location?
A good bit, yeah.
All right. Describe that area for us, if you would. What was out there, and what would you do out there?
So it's like a big shed hangar that side comes up. We'd all hang out over there. And there's the dog kennels. And then a few years back, they built the shed across from the hangar. And it was just a good place to get away from the main house and just hang out and talk.
If you were visiting Moselle, would you spend most of your time hanging around at that shed, the hangar area?
Depends. For large groups, we would have people over there more often. If it was just me and Paul and the family, we just hang out at the house.
You mentioned kennels. Were there a number of dogs on the property?
There were, yes.
Okay. Do you remember them?
Yes.
Okay. Tell us about the dogs you remembered. And well, first of all, were there kind of two different kinds of dogs? Between family dogs or working dogs?
Yes.
Okay. Did you get to know any of the family dogs?
Yes.
Who were they? Tell us about those dogs.
Bubba is a yellow lab, and then Bourbon, brown lab, and Grady is a black lab. And they were all pretty relaxed, would hang out around the house mostly, but I don't know, they were just good dogs.
Did they? And when you slept over there, did the dogs sleep at the house location, the main house?
Yes, they did. The family dogs did.
The
labs.
family dogs.
Yes.
And then there were some working dogs where would they stay? The working dogs.
They would stay in the kennels by the shed.
Yes, the location. So the Moselle location, when you started going there, did it have one or two entrances and exits?
2 entrances.
Okay.
And exits.
And describe the 2 entrances.
So one was the main entrance that was had like a brick pillar outside, and that would just kind of go to the house and not really pass anything, go through some trees. The other entrance would be next to the cabin, right behind the shed, and that entrance can kind of go multiple ways when you go in there, but that passes by the cabin and the sheds and then goes to the house as well.
And with that entrance, is that where the mailbox was located?
I can't remember the mailbox is. I believe it was at the pillars at the main entrance, maybe.
Is that the location near the dog kennels? That second exit?
Yes, yes.
Was there one exit that was used more often than the other?
We probably more often use the one by the sheds.
If there was ever a time where someone was leaving the house and you all were down at the kennels, what was the normal course of action for that person, whether it was Mr. and Mrs. Murdaugh?
Say that again?
If anyone was leaving the house or coming back and you all were down at the shed area, the kennel area, what was the normal course of action for Mr. and Mrs. Murdaugh if they were leaving the house and exiting and you were down there?
Typically, they would come check on us and drive by and just say hey. But
That was normal?
I would say it's normal, yes.
Did you, with Paul, were you guys close enough where you shared your location with each other?
We did.
Tell us what that means. Is this an iPhone?
Yeah, it's the app on Find My Friends on the iPhone.
And what does it mean to actually share your location with someone?
Just means any point in time you can open your phone and see where all your friends are and pinpoint their exact location.
Did you do that with many people?
Probably 5 or 10.
Do you know if Paul did that with many people?
Don't think Paul did with many people now.
When you spent time down at the hangar and the kennels, was it common for firearms to be stored down there or left down there?
Not common, no.
In those times, you said you've been about there about 30 to 40 times. How would you explain common? Was it something that you frequently see or not frequently?
I can't remember a time I've seen firearms left at the sheds.
When's the last time you saw Paul Murdaugh?
June 5th, I think, 2 days before.
That weekend before
Yes.
Monday, June
Yes.
7th? Tell us about that weekend.
I can't remember much. We were hanging out with my friends' houses. I think we went to a bar called the Windjammer in Charleston, but I don't remember much from the weekend.
Did you see him on Sunday?
Do not think I saw him on Sunday, no.
Did he stay at your house that weekend?
I don't think so. My friends and I were talking about that. We can't remember if it was my house or one of my other friends' houses.
Would Paul commonly stay at, when he was visiting Charleston, would he crash at people's houses?
Yes, he normally stayed at our house.
But you don't remember if that particular time he did or not?
Don't remember.
How were you kind of told about the murders? How'd you find out?
So I had missed a few calls in the middle of the night that I didn't wake up to. The next morning, my roommate came in my room and told me.
And your roommate is who?
Frank Chapman.
And he told you what happened?
Yes.
Did you make it out to the property at all?
Yes, the next day I went out to the property.
So the 8th of June?
Yes.
And walk us through what happened out there when you made it to the property. Where did you go?
We just went to the main house and just went to see the family and just be with everybody.
A lot of friends and family were there?
Good bit of friends and family, yes.
Did you attend the funeral as well?
I did, yes.
Beg the court's indulgence. Further questions?
That's,
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Mr. McElveen, where are you from?
From Columbia, South Carolina.
And are you friends with Will Chapman and Frank Chapman and Will Loving and
I am, yes.
that crowd? Okay. And And so you met with Paul, I take it, down at Edisto with the Columbia group?
Yep.
And you became really good friends with Paul's, correct?
Correct.
And I think you described him as a loyal friend, did you not?
Correct.
And you became close not only to Paul but to the entire Murdaugh family, right?
Correct.
You know, there are houses that kids, teenagers, young adults congregate at their parents' house. Was the Murdaugh house at Edisto one of those houses where people would congregate?
It was, yes.
And you spent a lot of time at Edisto there in the summers?
I did, yes.
And you spent time around Alec and Paul and Buster and Maggie, is that correct?
That's correct.
And how would you describe Alec's relationship with Paul?
They had a very good relationship. They were kind of best friends in a way.
They were close?
Very close.
And how, from your observation, how would you describe Alec's relationship with Maggie?
From everything I've seen, it was great too. I mean, nothing. I've never seen anything negative.
Right. And they liked for Paul to hang around with you, and right?
That's correct.
I mean, I think you were asked about that. You strike me as someone who's very responsible. Did they like that about you, you think?
They did, I think so.
And you strike me as someone who if you're down at Moselle, would not leave guns laying around. You wouldn't do that, would you?
Probably not, no, sir.
Okay, so when you were with Paul, hunting, you were responsible enough to be sure that guns got put away properly, correct?
Correct.
You were asked about some of their dogs. Actually, Paul had a puppy, did he not?
He did.
You have that puppy now?
I do.
What's his name?
His name's Goose.
How's he doing?
He's doing great.
Glad to hear that. And you describe 3 labs: Bubba, the yellow lab, Verdon, the brown lab, and Grady, the black lab.
That's correct.
And when you were at Moselle, I mean, these were family dogs, and they stayed up at the residence.
That's right.
Now, up at the residence, they had an invisible electric fence around the house, correct?
I didn't know about it, but possibly so.
Okay. Well, was Bubba a handful that just take off sometimes?
Sometimes.
Right. And you don't know, when was the last time you were at Moselle?
I can't remember.
Was it in 2021?
Most likely.
Okay. Were the dogs there?
I can't remember.
When you heard that Paul had been murdered, did Will Loving come down to your house in Charleston, or was it another friend's house?
Will went to another friend's, but I think he came to our house later in the day. But we had a group at our house as well.
And then you went to Moselle?
The next day we went to Moselle.
Would that have been on that Wednesday? The murders were Monday night, late.
So yes, I guess that Wednesday we went to Moselle.
So not the Tuesday, but the Wednesday.
I believe that's correct.
And who all went with you?
I think Frank Chapman went with me. And that might be it.
Okay. And who was there when you got there? Were any other any other friends of Paul there when you got there?
Rogan was there, and Nolan was there.
And what was?
There might have been a couple more, but I'm not sure.
Okay. What was Alex Murdaugh's demeanor when you saw him?
Just sad, crying.
Did y'all hug?
We did hug, yeah.
I mean, did he He was crying?
Yes.
And did you go back over to Moselle after the funeral?
Yes, I did.
And were there a bunch of Paul's friends there?
There were, yes.
And can you tell me, was Alex, was he still crying, hugging all the Paul's
He
friends?
was still crying. I mean, there were so many people there that it was kind of a line to see him, but from the little bit I saw him, yes.
One second, Your Honor. I don't have anything further.
Anything further? Thank you. You may step down. Break. Addressing the jury, 15 minutes break.
Please be seated.
Is there anything before the jury comes?
Thank you for your vote. Your Honor, we're attempting to resolve. It shouldn't be a complicated issue, but Mr. Waters and I are complicated people.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Waters and I agreed to some consternation on his part to this charge. And of course, obviously, Your Honor, it's a suggestion to you.
Yes, sir.
We're just suggesting we obviously have the authority.
All right, Mr. Waters.
Certainly, Your Honor, and I don't know if Your Honor has another instruction that you prefer. I probably would do the language just a little different in that particular one, but I think fundamentally the principles are accurate. I do think that the next to last sentence is superfluous because that's already said, but I think that's fine. And in the end, I don't think that there's too much that we have an issue with that particular charge.
And Your Honor, one other matter before we bring the jury in. Would you want to hear from me now? The state intends on introducing through, not this witness, if this witness is another witness, there's a GSR person, a specific GSR person.
That's correct. It would be the witness after this.
Okay. Evidence of GSR gunshot residue on that blue jacket. We would object to any such testimony under a 403 analysis. Prejudice outweighs the probative, and I'm struggling to figure out what the probative is. So I'm in this. I mean, I think it's factually driven. I think the state needs to give you some sense of what it proves. A jacket, I might point out, no one has put in the hands of the defendant. And the tarp that they found, they never tested for GSR, blood, DNA, and everyone says tarp. That's a jacket. I don't know how you connect it to the defendant. If the prejudice far outweighs any probative value in that it's not been connected to him, even circumstantially not connected to him. The only witness to it, Shelley, who I've talked to a couple times, indicated that was not what he had in his hands. She'd never seen it before, never seen it with him. So, Your Honor, we'd oppose it under a 403 analysis.
Yes, Your Honor. I think if you listen to the testimony of Ms. Smith in totality, first of all, she identified a picture where she said, yeah, that looks like what it was. It was balled up, and that picture, of course, was then identified by Ms. Moore as where they recovered the actual raincoat, which, of course, is a very, very large raincoat and very easily could be identified as a tarp. I think any issues that Mr. Harpootlian wants to make, he can certainly argue those to the jury, but the connection has been established between Ms. Smith and that particular raincoat, and looking at the picture and saying, that looks like what I saw. Additionally, with that other tarp, she also testified that there was no silver on that tarp, and if you look at the picture of that other tarp, it is half blue and half silver, so it's a very...
Which other tarp?
There was, I think, Miss, and I'll have to find the exhibits for me real quick, Your Honor. Today, yes, please. So, Your Honor, and I can put them up with the elbow or hand them up, whichever you prefer, but we have State's Exhibit 224, and this was a tarp you can see with a lot of silver on it, but State's Exhibit 411, Ms. Smith identified as that's what it looked like. You can see that balled up thing right there, and that is ultimately the rain jacket, which as you saw, particularly on redirect with Ms. Gowd, this is extremely large, very easily could look like a tarp. And when she balled it up, Ms. Smith said, yeah, that's what it looked like. So I think there's been enough of a nexus established as to the probative value. And what you'll, of course, hear is that from the GSR experts is that very high levels of GSR were found within the inside of that blue rain jacket, which again is this big and very, very long. Again, Mr. Harpootlian can argue to the jury whatever inferences he wants to, but I think the state has established enough of a nexus to not only make it relevant, but to make its probative value not substantially outweighed by the danger of unfair prejudice.
Yes, sir.
I think he either misunderstood or is misquoting what Ms. Smith said. She said, when she was shown that photo, she said, it's the same color or like the same color. She never, ever, ever said, that's what I saw him with as he came through the door. He put, and by the way, she found the tarp. That couldn't be the tarp because the tarp was found downstairs across a chair, which is what she said he walked in with. So the tarp in the box obviously isn't it. And I mean, she said the tarp that he came in with was the one that was on the chair when he came down, not the coat. All she ever said was that blue coat, balled up, appears to be the same color. No one has ever said that she saw him or anybody saw him with that jacket. And I would also point out that I hate to say this, but I would suspect there are a number of rain jackets in this area of the state that have GSR on them, in them, around them. So there's no one that says he had possession. All she ever said was, and by the way, it's all balled up. All she said was, it looks like the same color. She saw a picture of the rain jacket and said, that is not what he was carrying when he came in.
All right. The item is in evidence. The witness testified as to the location of the item of evidence and where she believed that it was placed by the defendant. It's in evidence. Obviously, the state contends that it has some inculpatory evidence on it. This is a circumstantial case, and circumstantially, proof may be offered on the issue of whether or not this gunshot residue or whatever it might be can be traced to the defendant. And I overrule the objection. I find the evidence offered is more probative than prejudicial, though I do not believe a probative versus prejudicial analysis is required on this issue. But to the extent that it is, I find that it's more probative than prejudicial, and I deny the motion to prevent the state from offering testimony.
Accept your ruling.
Yes, sir. If you bring the jury. Thank you. Your next witness. State's next witness.
Johnny James for the state calls Natasha Moody.
Raise your right hand, left hand on the Bible. Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give the court in this trial shall be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Take a seat in the witness stand. State your name again for the record. Spell your last name.
My name is Natasha Moody, last name Moodie.
I spelled it with a Y on my paper. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Miss Moody, where are you from?
Jacksonville, Florida.
And for whom do you work?
Bank of America, NA.
What do you do for Bank of America, NA?
I am a Consumer Resolution Associate.
Consumer Resolution Associate. What does a Consumer Resolution Associate do?
I manage a portfolio of litigated matters. I appear on behalf of the bank for trials, depositions, mediations, and I also review our business records on a daily basis.
Your business records. Were you asked to review business records for Bank of America, NA in relation to this case?
I was. I did.
I am showing you 3 items labeled for identification as State's Exhibit 415, 416, and 417. Do you recognize these items?
I do.
And how do you recognize them?
I reviewed them and I also initialed them.
And generally speaking, what are these items?
These are documents for this case, opening account documents, monthly statements for various accounts, and copies of checks for this account, for various accounts.
So are they bank records?
Yes.
Your Honor, State moves to introduce Exhibits 415, 416, and 417 into evidence at this time, my understanding, with subject to any objections from Your Honor's previous ruling off today.
Yes, sir. Ms. Harper.
Your Honor, may I confer with Mr. Murdaugh?
Yes.
To the admission of these records, I would ask you to give whatever cautionary charge you're going to do.
All right. Be happy to. Ladies and gentlemen, evidence or testimony is about to be offered that the defendant may have been involved in other criminal activity, and that evidence is not evidence or proof that he committed the offenses charged in the indictments. This testimony has been allowed and is being allowed for the limited purpose of assisting the state in proving motive. You may not consider this evidence for purposes of character of Mr. Murdaugh, nor may you consider this evidence as evidence of his propensity to commit other crimes, or that it is more likely that he committed the crimes with which he is currently on trial. It is being allowed based on the state's representation that it helps explain the defendant's motive to commit the crimes for which he is accused. And you may proceed.
Very briefly, Ms. Moody, we had 3 discs that are now in evidence. What information is on that first disc? You indicated that it was bank records. Do you have any additional information to describe those bank records?
I do, but I don't have the disc in front of me.
Okay. Showing you State's Exhibit labeled 415. What records are on that disc?
There are checking account ending, it involves checking accounts, and I can give you the last 4 digits of those.
If you would, please.
Checking account ending in the last 4 digits is 6779. It has account opening documents for that one. The next one is account ending in 7991, and those are account opening documents for that account. And then checking account ending in 7625, and that's account opening documents for that account, and then also monthly statements and supporting documents for all 3 accounts.
Thank you. Now showing you State's Exhibit 416. What's on this disc?
These are credit card ending in 9559. And those are monthly statements in that, and account opening application documents.
State's Exhibit 417, what's on that disc?
Also another credit card ending in 8591, and these are application accompanying documents and monthly statements for this account.
In evidence, but we would not have any objection to them except as to our previously made objections.
Yes, sir.
State moves to admit these 3 exhibits. No further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
No questions.
Thank you, Ms. Moody.
Moody.
You may step down and you're excused. You may call your next witness. Yes.
Statement now called Jamie Hall.
Raise your right hand, left hand on the Bible. Yes. Do you affirm the testimony by the court shall be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your name again for the record. Spell your last name, please.
My name is Jamie Hall, Hall.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Where do you work?
I'm currently employed at the West Columbia Police Department as an evidence custodian.
How long have you been there?
Since April of 2022.
Will you please tell the ladies and gentlemen of this jury about Jamie Hall, as much to your background, as personal background as you want to. I'll leave that to you, but specifically your education and background that led you to law enforcement, please.
Yes, sir. I grew up in the Midlands area of South Carolina. Upon graduating high school, I attended Clemson University and obtained my Bachelor's of Science degree in Wildlife and Fisheries Biology. After that, I spent a couple years traveling and working some various jobs. I moved back to the area in 2013 and began looking to start a career, and ended up at SLED in 2015 as an administrative assistant in the Trace Evidence Department in the Forensic Services Laboratory. I was an administrative assistant until 2017 when I became an evidence technician, a forensic technician too, in the Trace Evidence Lab.
When did you graduate Clemson?
In 2010.
Okay. So after you traveled some, you started working in SLED in what year?
In 2015.
Okay. What was your job then?
I was an administrative assistant.
And what does that mean?
For the Trace Evidence Department, that involved answering phone calls, filing documents, pretty much normal administrative duties.
Did you further your education or your experiences while you were at SLED in that field?
No, sir. When I became the technician in 2017, that's when I began the in-house training for that career.
Okay. Tell us about the in-house training when you became the forensic technician.
Yeah, so that training involved oral and practical examinations in-house under the supervision of an analyst, in which I learned how to properly handle the evidence and process the evidence for potential GSR. I also oversaw some testimonies of some analysts to be familiar with courtroom policies as well. And I took some outside training from Hook College in Chicago as well.
Hook College in Chicago?
Hook, yes, sir.
What was that training?
It was training regarding the scanning electron microscope, which is used for GSR analysis.
That's the acronym is SEM for that?
The SEM, yes, sir.
Okay. And when did you leave SLED?
In March of 2022.
Okay. And do you mind, you're working where now?
At the West Columbia Police Department.
West Columbia Police Department. And you are there what?
Evidence custodian.
Now, back in June of 2021, you were a forensic technician for SLED.
Yes, sir.
Special agent, forensic technician?
No, sir. I was not considered an agent or considered law enforcement. I was just the forensic technician, too.
Okay. So then, in June of 2021, what was your job on a day-to-day basis?
My primary role in the Trace Evidence Department as a forensic technician was to prepare evidence for GSR analysis. That includes GSR kits as well as inanimate objects that came in for potential GSR testing.
And we're going to have Ms. Fletcher testify right after you, but what is a GSR kit?
A GSR kit is an envelope that goes out to officers or investigators so that they can collect on scene from a potential suspect's hands. And it involves, it has all the items they need: gloves so that they can make sure they're not contaminating the subject's hand. And then the little vials that contain the GSR particle lifts with a double-sided adhesive that's used to dab across their hands to pick up any potential GSR.
So those are kind of done in the field, if you will?
Yes, sir.
After a local law enforcement agency uses one of these kits, what happens to it?
When they decide that they need it analyzed, they submit it to the laboratory, and then when it comes into the laboratory, I prepare it for analysis. So that involves me making sure it's been properly sealed and initialed, handled properly, the correct kit. There are a variety of kits out there. Our lab has particular kits that we accept, so I confirm that it is an acceptable kit. And I also confirm that it was collected within the allowed time frame. On a living person, we're touching things all the time and possibly contaminating or removing the GSR. So we do have a 6-hour time limit on kits collected from individuals.
So if a kit comes into SLED or your possession, do you check to see if it was collected during that 6-hour time period?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. And how do you do that?
We have what we call an information worksheet included in each GSR kit that the officer fills out that includes the time or the estimated time that the shooting occurred, as well as the time that the kit was collected.
I'm going to show you what is marked States 13. Can you tell if you were involved with States 13? And if you can, how can you tell?
Yes, sir. This has the unique SLED lab number and item number, and it also has my initials on the day that I processed it.
6821 JEH.
Yes, sir.
What's the E stand for?
Elizabeth.
Now, court, would you open this, please? Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Did you examine States 13?
Yes, sir. Again, it also has my date and initials from the day that I processed it.
Your initials again, JEH?
Yes, sir.
6821?
Yes, sir.
And when you're processing this, tell us again, what are you looking to see, whether it's what's done or not, or just tell us what you
Okay. So for a GSR kit, I start by using what we call an inventory worksheet. And on that worksheet, what I'm doing is confirming the manufacturer of the kit as well as the lot number for the kit. They have lot numbers for quality control purposes to make sure they're not contaminated before they're used for collection. I'm confirming who the kit was collected from, that 6-hour time frame. And during that time, I also label the individual particle lifts inside with the unique lab number, item number, date and initials for control purposes.
And I believe a sheet has been entered where Murdaugh collected this GSR kit from the defendant. Are you aware of that?
Are you referring to the gunshot residue analysis information sheet?
That's exactly what I'm referring to.
Yes, sir. That's what I would have used to confirm the 6-hour time frame.
Okay. And it's in evidence already. I'm not sure exactly what number, but do you have that copy?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. And this has already, if you'll trust me, this has already been entered into evidence. Did you use this in examining, determining whether this was collected properly?
Yes, sir, I did. It also has my date and initials on it.
So using the form, show these ladies and gentlemen what you did. How you came up and...
There's a section here at the bottom. So we have the subject's name from whom it was collected.
And who is that?
This one says Richard Alexander Murdaugh.
Okay.
As well as the time and date the shooting occurred, 6/7/21, 10 p.m.
And that's information that's gathered at the scene from somebody, right?
Yes, sir. This particular kit says that it was filled out by collecting officer Brian Vandor. Sorry if I messed that up.
That's good enough. Okay.
And then at the bottom, the collecting officer has also signed and dated that it was collected on 6/7/21 at 11:15 p.m.
And would that 11:15 fit in the time period where you're saying, okay, well, I can pass this on to be analyzed?
Yes, sir. It's an hour and 15 minutes.
And so, not taking away from what's your job at all, but one of your jobs is to make sure that's done correctly?
Yes, sir.
And then do you inspect the vials, if you will, to make
Yes,
sure?
sir. I make sure that there's nothing out of the ordinary with them. Occasionally, you would have a little crack in the vial, but I've never had anything damaged.
So in your opinion, these were collected properly and you passed them on for analysis?
To the best of my knowledge, yes, sir.
Now, were there, let me ask you this much. Local agencies that you examine items for potential evidence, in this case gunshot residue, how do they get to the lab?
Typically, the officers from the local agency submit them through our evidence control department. And once they're submitted that way, that's when they're assigned their unique lab number and item numbers for each piece of evidence. And then based on the type of analysis that agency requested, we would get notice that it needs to be processed. And so I would pick it up from evidence control and bring it upstairs to the trace lab to begin the processing.
And is all that documented from local agency to y'all and where it goes from there?
I can't attest to what the outside agencies do. I believe it probably varies agency to agency. But once it's been logged into our system downstairs, it is tracked throughout the laboratory for every hand that touches it.
That's kind of what we refer to as a chain, correct?
Yes, sir. It's
Chain of
referred to as the
evidence.
chain of custody.
Chain of custody. Now, did you have some other items of potential evidence in this case that you examined?
Yes, sir. I had several other items.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's marked states 418. Ask me if you can just identify this. That's all, and does it relate to your testimony?
Well, I can no longer see my initials, but I did process items that were in container D, and this is marked with container D for this case number. Yes, sir.
And would you open it up then to see if you
Yes.
can further find your mark with the court's permission? Mark 21, excuse me, it's your lab number 21 contained in states 418 at this point for identification. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I recognize it as the lab item number 20.
And what is lab item number 20?
It was a brown paper bag containing one pair of green cargo shorts.
And also contained in 418, lab number 21. Can you tell me if you recognize that?
Yes, sir. It's lab number, or item number for this case, 19, which was a brown paper bag containing one white T-shirt.
Now, Jim. You're on all 418 without objection.
They're admitted.
I'm going to show you what time purpose. Thank you, Your Honor. Sorry. I'm going to ask you, please, may I ask a question? Look at 423, 424, and 425. Do you recognize these, and do they relate to what you're talking about right now?
Yes, sir. These are PGSR collection worksheets from clothing that I generate during my process of collecting from inanimate objects.
Okay. Inanimate objects.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, let's start with the shirt, 423.
Yes,
It's in
sir.
evidence. Tell these folks what you did with the shirt.
So anytime we're processing clothing or an inanimate object in the lab, we start by making sure everything's been thoroughly cleaned, and we also place down parchment paper to just as an extra check and balance to make sure there's nothing contaminating the evidence. We also place what we call a clothing blank out onto the table where we are processing. That's just another one of those double-sided adhesive stubs, and it's left open and exposed to the environment to make sure there's no contamination in the environment. That's how I start all of my clothing. Then I confirm that everything is adequately sealed and documented, and I open my items and lay them out on the parchment paper. I photograph items, and then I do label those items for identification later if needed. And then I will sample the clothing item closest, in the areas that would be closest to the discharge of the firearm. So in this case, we're talking about a t-shirt. So I will sample the right chest and sleeve area together and the left chest and left sleeve together. So if you want to draw a line down your midline for right and left, and then we typically go down to just below the chest area.
And is that what you do with every shirt?
Yes, sir. If it's a long sleeve garment, I would typically use a separate particle lift for the chest area and the arms, just because the adhesive doesn't last quite as long.
And if you said this, I apologize, I'm tired. Why are you doing those areas?
It's closest to the discharge of a firearm.
Potential discharge, so that's where you test.
Yes, sir.
Well, looking at the shirt, look 418, the shirt that's contained in here. Which one's the shirt?
19.
19?
Yes, sir.
Before you get to doing the particle list, what's the first thing you do?
I confirm what the item is and that it's properly sealed and initialed.
Do you open it?
After I clean, I open it. Yes, sir.
And do you make observations of items when you first open it?
Yes, sir. Anything that seems out of the ordinary for any item is documented on the worksheet in the comments section.
And you have a comment section. That's where you put your thoughts, right?
Yes, sir. Anything that may, again, be out of the ordinary or affect the analysis later.
And just to go back, you go down a bit. Yeah, so this is right sleeve, right chest, left sleeve, left chest. Hanes beefy shirt, right? Okay, you can go down a little bit.
I don't have any objection to introducing 423 into evidence. I don't think it's in evidence yet, but no objection.
We offered it a little while ago without objection. 423, 24, 25.
I have no objection to those three exhibits going in.
I thought I'd said that. If I didn't, I apologize. Is this a Hanes beefy t-shirt?
Yes, sir, it was.
And item 19.1. What are your comments underneath there?
Small reddish brown stains observed. Shirt had an odor of laundry detergent.
What do you mean by that, an odor of laundry detergent?
It just smelled freshly laundered, which is not typical of the lab. Typically, clothing smells slightly musky when we get it.
And you examined this shirt when?
On June 8th of 2021.
Now, you didn't know, did you have any knowledge about this case whatsoever?
I just knew that we had asked to make it a priority in the lab.
And you attempted to collect particle lists from that shirt?
I did collect particle lists from the shirt, yes, sir.
Next, states 425. Sorry, we're out of order here. This is also your clothing worksheet?
Can I see the top of that sheet? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Oh, yes, sir.
And what was this that you examined?
This was the worksheet we generated when we collected from a seat belt that was collected from a 2021 Chevy Suburban, South Carolina tag CZL420.
I think we have it marked for ID only. Do you recognize this? Strike that, I'm sorry. The seatbelt states 100. Thank you to everybody. States 100. Can you look at this and see if you haven't examined that before? Does it relate to your testimony?
Yes, sir. This was sled item number 142, and it also has my date and initials on it as well.
All right, what did you do with states 100?
At the direction of the analyst, Megan Fletcher, I collected samples from various areas on the seatbelt.
And can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, how did you determine where you were going to collect samples?
Since this was not our typical item, I collected from areas in which Megan instructed me to collect.
Which was where?
We collected from the buckle, 3 different areas of the belt, and the latch plate.
Can you show the jury where you collected?
Yeah. So this, I believe, was what we call the latch plate.
Okay.
Sorry if I'm misspeaking on that, but and then the buckle was. Oh gosh. This area here, and we did the top and bottom of it. And the 3 sections were just, we measured the length for each section, did a section, rolled more out, and did the next section.
And how were you actually doing it with the particle lifts? How were you collecting them?
So, as stated before, the particle lifts have a double-sided adhesive on it, and you just repeatedly dab that across the garment or the item that you're collecting until it loses its adhesive abilities.
100, we'd offer, Your Honor.
No objection, Your Honor.
Did it? Thank you. And looking back on the sheet that's noted here, that's where you went through and did your inventory sheet, correct?
Yes, sir.
And this is to document you did what you did, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, did you also have an occasion to examine the pants in this case? It's already, I believe, in evidence.
I did collect from some cargo shorts.
And those were also included on what I just took down off the LMO, but can you tell the folks where you collected or tried to collect lifts off the cargo shorts and why you collected in those areas?
Yes, sir. For any type of pants or shorts, we always collect from the right groin and the left groin area. Again, that's the area that's closest to the discharge of a firearm.
And that's standard. That's what you do.
That is standard practice.
Now, did you
Is that correct, Mr. Griffin?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is that noted?
Would you mind opening up for, first of all, do you know whether or not you examined a pair of shoes in this case?
I did, and these are the shoes, sled item number 21.
Okay. Would you please open that for the ladies and gentlemen?
Gloves.
Sure. Yes, ma'am.
Before you cut in that, do you see JEH on here?
Yes, sir, I do. On 6/8/21, I signed my initials.
So what is all that right there?
I believe it's yard debris.
Court permissions to dump this right here, or can I get a trash can?
Get a trash can.
These are states 419 in without objection. Can you show these to the jury?
Sir.
Show the jury what you, I'll hold them. Show the jury what you,
So with shoes, when we collect from them, we're going to collect again to the area that would be closest to the discharge of the firearm, so the front of the shoe. So in this case, I would do the area where the laces would typically be and the front toe. Depending on how well the adhesive continues, it will depend on how far back I go, but I start with the toe and then work my area down the sides.
is this the condition they were when you saw them on June 8th, 2021?
There was more grassy type material on them when I had them.
Okay. And what I just dumped in the trash can with the court's permission and in here, did you indicate on your comment section
Yes.
whether or not yard debris was present?
Yes, sir. I commented that shoes were wet with yard debris present.
Wet with yard debris.
Yes, sir.
Did you, on June 8th now, go back in your mind, when you saw these, in addition to wet and yard debris, did you make any other notes in the comment section about those shoes?
I did not.
Do you remember, did you see anything that looked like blood?
I did not make any note of that. No, sir.
With your naked eye?
No, sir.
Top or bottom?
No, sir.
Okay. Did you have any other items that you examined that were presented to you for examination either by yourself or with Megan Fletcher?
Yes, sir.
What was that?
It was sled item number 173, and it was, we described it as one blue rain jacket / poncho.
Okay. And was this the same? No. When did you examine the poncho?
I believe we began on October 5th, 2021.
Okay. So is it fair to say that the clothes, the shirt, the pants, and the shoes were on June 8th of 2021?
Let me check my notes. Yes, sir, that's correct. June 8th of 2021.
And I didn't ask you this, and I apologize. When did you examine the belt, the seat belt?
The seatbelt was examined on September 1st, 2021.
And again, the specific date for the raincoat was what?
October 5th, 2021.
And tell the ladies and gentlemen, take us to the lab now. How did you examine that garment, the rain jacket?
This was also not our typical garment, and I believe there was some information provided from investigations. So everything that I did in this case was at the direct, or in this, for this particular item, was at the direct supervision of Megan Fletcher. She essentially told me where she would like me to collect, and she documented everything on the note sheet while I physically collected the particle list.
that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
They're admitted.
And Your Honor, 421 are the particle lists from the rain jacket, and I believe there's no objection except the further the objection they made previously. No additional objection, 421.
They're admitted.
So let me go back in time real quick. Are these the particle lifts you took from the seatbelt? 427?
Yes, sir. My initials are also on each individual stub.
And that's sort of like the officer has in the scene. You're now doing it in the lab, taking particle lifts, correct?
Correct.
And particle lists from 420 lists from 19, 20, and 21, which I think are the pants, the shirt, and the shoes. Were these the particle lists from 420 that you actually took?
Yes, sir.
Again in the twos.
Yes, sir.
And your initials is on it.
Yes, sir.
Now, 421, you said it was a little different, unusual. How did you take the particle list on this rain jacket?
I believe everything was considered in Megan's custody while I was doing the collection, and then it was transferred directly to my custody when I carbon coated the particle lifts. That's just a process where a thin layer of carbon is added. It allows the analyst to get better images on the instrument. It doesn't do anything to add or remove GFSR. It just simply adds a very thin layer of carbon. So it was in my custody at that time, but prior to that it was in Megan's custody.
Okay. Martin, it's 226. Is this the rain jacket that you were describing?
If I can check the bottom cuff. Yes, sir. The date and my initials are here in the bottom cuff.
So you looked at this rain jacket.
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. And Megan Fletcher was with you.
Yes, sir.
And tell the ladies and gentlemen, how did you process? Where did you attempt to get particle lifts?
Basically the entire garment. We marked it off in different sections, again, where Megan advised me to collect from, and I repeatedly dabbed the particle lift across each section until it lost adhesive.
These particle lifts?
Yes, sir.
You dabbed each one of these?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what are these little things on here? These tape or the...
I'm not sure what those are.
Now, you did the outside of this garment.
Correct.
Did you do anything else to it?
We also sampled the inside of this garment as well.
So you actually turned it inside out and took samples from the inside?
That's correct.
Okay. Megan Fletcher was with you?
Yes, sir.
What about the hood? Did you test it or take samples from the outside of the hood?
Yes, sir, we did.
Did you take samples from the inside of the hood?
Yes, sir, we did.
Beg the court's indulgence. gloves here now, but when you're examining all of these items, do you wear gloves?
Yes, sir.
Does Megan Fletcher, did she wear gloves?
Yes, sir.
Why?
To make sure we're not contaminating it, as well as to protect ourselves from anything that may be on the garment.
And as far as the, to not contaminate it, you don't want to put anything of you on that garment.
Correct. It's standard practice for us to wear a lab coat, gloves, and if it's going to be processed for DNA later, we also wear a mask.
And is that in a controlled environment when you attempt to get these particles?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Judge. That's all.
By the defense.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Exhibits 423.
Oh, here they are. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Ms. Hall.
Good afternoon.
You said if you're going to do DNA testing, you wear a mask.
Yes, sir.
Did you wear a mask?
Yes, sir, I did.
So, to your knowledge, were some of these items processed for DNA after the GSR processing?
It was my understanding that they had the potential for DNA analysis. Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, let's just talk about how you go about sampling for GSR. And you talked about the shirt, and you said you would do the chest and sleeve on either side. How does that work? Do you lay the shirt out on a table?
Yes, sir. So as I stated, the table is thoroughly cleaned, and then we place down parchment paper as well, sterile parchment paper, and lay the garment out on that so that we can access all the areas.
And for the shirt here, I think it's item 19, did you just check on the two areas at the top on the chest side?
Yes, sir. Unless we're given information from the investigative team or from an officer who submitted it that there's potentially a reason to test somewhere else, we only test the chest and sleeve area because that's the area that would be closest to the discharge of a firearm.
And that's what you're looking for is, do you call it gunshot residue, is that right?
Yes, sir. It's microscopic, so you cannot see it. Therefore, we're testing the areas where we would expect to find it.
And you would expect to find gunshot residue on the shoulders of a person who had recently shot a gun, I would take it.
Yes, sir.
That's what you're looking for.
That's what we're trying to find out, yes.
Right. And then you did some GSR testing of a seatbelt assembly and buckle and whatnot, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you did GSR testing of this rain jacket here, right?
Correct.
And shirt, shorts, shoes, and Officer Murdaugh, I think's his name, you received a sample from him, and you just checked to be sure it was off.
I didn't physically receive it from him, but he was the collecting officer listed on the sheet, yes, sir.
Okay. And so he would have taken the sample, or whoever did it would have taken it from Mr. Murdaugh, and that would be item number 18, I believe.
Slide item 18, yes, sir.
And those are the samples taken from Mr. Murdaugh's hands, I take it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, you can get gunshot residue on you by just simply picking up a firearm, can you not?
Those questions would be better asked of the analyst. I can only testify to factually what I did.
Okay. And the analyst here is Ms. Fletcher?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, let me ask you to take a look at your worksheet, which is in evidence 423. And do you have that up there?
Yes, sir.
You know, I think I'd rather put it on the Elmo so we can. Do you have it in?
I have my copy, yes, sir.
Okay, great. So All right. Yeah, go to the top. Okay, let's stop right there. Agent Hall, it says that this was a brand Hanes Beefy T-shirt,
Yes, sir.
and then particle lifts, right sleeve, right chest, left sleeve, left chest, correct?
Correct.
And it says description, paper bag containing one white T-shirt. Is that right?
That's correct.
And Doug, if you'll go up, down a little bit more, okay. And then there it says, comment, small reddish brown stains observed. Shirt had odor of laundry detergent. That's what it says, correct?
Correct.
Do you know what those small reddish brown stains looked like?
They looked like small reddish brown stains on the shirt.
Were they tested?
I have no knowledge of what was done after I handled the object.
Okay. Now below here it says sealed brown paper bag containing one pair of green shorts. Is that just an entry for another item?
Yes, sir. That's item number 20. The sheet is designed where we can put 2 items on one sheet.
Okay. So when you received the shirt, item 19, was it in its own separate bag?
In this case, it was, yes, sir. That's why I made the note that that individual item contained its own brown paper bag, while the description says brown paper bag containing.
Okay. And the shorts, those are green cargo shorts, and again, you lifted, it says right groin, left groin.
Correct.
And it's just on the, is it on the inside of the pants leg, or?
Well, it's on the outside of the garment, down to, a reasonable distance, depending on the type of fabric, could depend on how much adhesive it has, depending on how large the garment is from the person. A small garment versus a 3XL is completely different. It depends on how far I can go down on the garment.
And then to do this, you take a sticky something or another, and
it's a double-sided adhesive on an aluminum stub. Within those little vials, the bottom has a holder for that, and then we grip it by the bottom and repeatedly dab it across the garment
until it loses its stickiness.
Correct.
And then, do you do one vial per area or multiple vials?
It's one vial per area listed. If for some reason I needed to use an extra vial or an additional vial, that would have had its own listing on the worksheet.
Okay. Now, I tell you, you don't know what the results of your lifting were, do you?
No, sir, I do not.
That you would then finish your work and send it up the chain?
Yes, sir. All the items are either given directly to the analyst or they're securely stored in the trace evidence lab until the analyst takes possession of them.
Okay. And this blue rain jacket, you said you put carbon on it or something?
Yes, sir. It's a standard practice for anything collected from an inanimate object. We typically get a lot of debris, sand, dirt, or fibers, typically from clothing, and that can cause it to be a little bit more difficult on the instrument for them to get pictures of the particles. So the carbon just allows them to get a better picture of the a better picture of the particles when they do their analysis, but it does not do anything to add or remove GSR.
So you put the carbon down before you use your sticky thing?
No, sir, that process happens after the collection.
Okay.
So it goes into a small device, and there's little rods of carbon that are rubbed against each other inside of the instrument to put the layer of carbon onto it.
I see. But you're not putting carbon on the garment?
No, sir.
Got it. Okay. One second, Your Honor. Ms. Hall, are you involved in any way with DNA processing?
No, sir, I'm not.
Okay. And so you don't know whether any of the items were processed for DNA?
I have no knowledge of where the items went after they left my department.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. You may step down. Unless you have a 2-minute witness, this will be it for today.
We don't, Your Honor, unfortunately.
Ladies and gentlemen, that'll do it for this day. We'll resume at 9:30 tomorrow morning. Please do not discuss the case. Be seated. Mr. Harpootlian, concerning the item that you were objecting to the testing, I think it was that the blue, what exhibit number is that?
Not the T-shirt, not the shorts, not the shoes.
And regarding that same number 226 rain jacket, is the same item that Mr. Griffin cross-examined a previous witness concerning? Ms. Smith,
Yes, sir.
concerning?
Examined her extensively about whether she'd ever, first of all, was that the rain jacket in his hands when he came in that morning? 2, had she ever seen him with that rain jacket? And 3, did she, I mean, when she looked into the closet, did she know whether it was a tarp or whether it was a rain jacket? Was it the same color? She said it was the same color. That's it. And I objected to it because I thought the prejudicial outweighed the probative.
So I also recall Mr. Griffin questioned her as to whether it appeared there was a gun or different things in it.
No, Your Honor. I questioned her as to the tarp. This witness, Ms. Shelley Smith, they never showed her the rain jacket. She's never identified a rain jacket. And when asking court here a photo of that rain jacket, she says, Your Honor, that is not what he had. And what's so prejudicial is they have introduced GSR, and they will introduce an expert tomorrow to say it's covered with GSR. And that is extremely prejudicial. They have no evidence connecting Mr. Murdaugh to that rain jacket. And the only witness they relied upon to get a search warrant, Your Honor, says that he came in with a tarp. I questioned her whether in the tarp it looked like there was a gun in the tarp. She says no. She says he went upstairs, he came down, he laid the tarp open on his mother's retirement rocking chair. And she leaves that day and she sees the tarp laid out, and it's a tarp that looks like it goes over a car. And now they're coming in, showed her a photo of something in the closet that they seized and says, yeah, does that look like a tarp? And, I mean, does that look like what you saw? She said, well, it's blue. And now they're putting in GSR on an item in a house he doesn't live in, on an item he's never had in his possession, to the best of anybody's knowledge, and that's the basis of our objection, Your Honor.
So, Your Honor, again, if you look at the testimony, excuse me, in its entirety, Ms. Smith described She testified, of course, that Alex Murdaugh had showed up early in the morning, which was highly unusual. He was carrying what appeared to be a blue tarp balled up, and then she was shown the picture in the closet where it's balled up and said, that looks like the item. Now, when it was pulled out and shown by them, she said, that's not what necessarily